How to escape Slack hell, reduce your overwhelm when using Slack with this 3-part strategy so you can finally focus and get bleep done. This is a question I actually got from Karen. Karen, thank you so much for your question. She says, a major friction point for our team is that important Slack messages aren't seen or are being missed. Sometimes days go by without something is read. By then, we've already gone in a different direction. Before I answer this question, if you have questions for me, put them in the comments below and I might just be answering it on air for you. I think Slack overwhelm is a productivity killer, and if you're not on Slack or on MS Teams or some other platform, it's all the same. Every time that we have to stop what we're doing to answer a message, totally kills our focus. And sometimes if we go away for a little while, there can be like this backlog of like 50, 60 messages, and it's just like, oh my God, get me out of here. At some point, it feels like I'm so over talking about work. I just want everyone to shut the F up and allow me to just work. I don't want to talk about work. I just want to work. And so I think the root issue with Slack and similar tools is actually not managing Slack better. It's not about better channels. It's not about certain automations. In fact, I think the key strategy is to reduce Slack overload in the first place by just reducing how often we use Slack in the first place. Many years ago, I read a book called The 4-Hour Workweek. Maybe you've heard of it. It's by a guy named Tim Ferriss, not Tim Francis, but Tim Ferriss. And he talked about a principle, and I don't know where he got this from, but it's an outstanding one. If he came up with it, hats off to him. It's eliminate, automate, delegate. It's a productivity strategy, and it's critical that you do it in that order. Eliminate before you automate, before you delegate. It doesn't make any sense if we're looking to be productive to delegate to someone else if a robot should just do it. And it doesn't make sense to take the time, energy, and money to set up a robot to do it if we can just eliminate doing it at all. In this next few minutes, I'm going to share with you how you can eliminate, automate, and delegate when it comes to Slack. And I think that where we begin is with how can we just eliminate Slack usage and or eliminate bad Slack usage in the first place. So strategy number 1, eliminate it at the source, cut down the amount that Slack gets used. First of all, I think that there is this ridiculous trend in business towards asynchronous work, where we don't have meetings and all we do is just work asynchronously, whether that's over Slack or email or some other platform. Here's why I hate that. I hate that because of a concept called context switching. I first heard about that from Todd Herman. Shout out, Todd. Context switching is when we're in one context, maybe I'm working on a spreadsheet, for example, and then something happens, a ding, a ping, a ring, a knock at the door, a notification on my phone, an Amazon delivery, a dog barks, who knows, and all of a sudden I get snapped out of this context, and that's already a problem. It's the opposite of deep work when we get snapped out of our focus. But it's even worse is when there's not just a context break, but a context switch, because now I got to go over to this other thing and remind myself, what is this? Why am I doing it? Where am I in this project? And once we get that done, thank goodness something got done, but now we have a new problem. We're going to take all the time to come back to this first context. What was I doing? Where was I? All that time of changeover, massive waste of time. Totally a killer of productivity for people at every level of any organization, from entry-level people all the way to the CEO. We must avoid changeover. Avoid changeover. It is such a bad idea. Now, in some roles, like let's say someone is working in a call center, they are dependent on being available and responsive. That's going to be a little bit different, right? As much as possible, though, most people who are not in a responsive type job, if we can reduce context switching, we're in a better and more productive situation. So this idea of living asynchronously, working async, it's trendy, it's cool, but every time I read another email or I read another Slack message, I actually have to switch context. What is this message? What is this message? What is this message? Whereas imagine if I could pull all of those messages out, bundle them together, right? And by that I mean all the similar messages. So if it's everything related to quarterly planning, for example, if somehow all those messages could magically get pulled out of my Slack or email and magically put on a document for me, and I could deal with them all in a batched kind of way. And imagine if all the people that I would have to talk about those issues with were available at my fingertips and we could talk about it in real time. Geez, does that technology exist? Because if it did, that would sure cut down the amount of context switching that I was doing and everyone was doing that was working on this project. Does that technology, should we raise some money for, oh, it's a meeting. It's a meeting. Look, I'm all for reducing unnecessary meetings. You betcha. Also, I think a big reason why the whole async movement has happened is because people arrive at meetings unprepared. And one thing that async does do that is a wonderful idea is it's a forcing function that forces the participants in the conversation to write down their thoughts and then send an email or send a DM. It introduces friction, and so if someone, a sender, is like, it's too much hassle to have to write this out, maybe they'll just solve it on their own. And now we didn't even need the meeting. You know what? Point taken. Alternatively, I love that there's this great, I saw this from David Perel. He's not the first to say it, but credit to him for bringing it to my attention, that it's like reading and studying is gathering the dots, but writing is actually connecting the dots. And it is so true. Like, it's kind of like that old parable, I would have written you a shorter letter, but I didn't have the time. Being concise and being clear requires thought and requires time to distill what it is we actually mean, organize our thoughts. Now, thankfully, this day and age, ChatGPT helps big time. You can just say your mess of ideas and say, turn this into a coherent email or essay or position piece, and voila, it can help you out big time. That is the only advantage I can think of async, is that it forces clarity and it creates just a little friction that people are more inspired to help themselves. Now, that's about a 2% advantage. The 98% advantage on productivity you get by actually just having a meeting instead of trying to live async on Slack. Huge, huge, huge upside to just have the dang meeting. Okay, so sometimes that means that we need to have like a sub meeting. So let's say you've got a team of 8 people. I've got 8 people in my team. We don't all meet all the time. We sometimes have sub meetings. So like the production team, they have meetings every week. I have no idea what goes on in there. I have a broad sense, but I do not know the specifics. I have not been to a production team in like probably a year and a half. And that's perfect. That's what I want. Likewise, there's some meetings I'm a part of that are related to like marketing. And some of the production people have never been to any of those meetings. And that is perfectly fine. And then there's some finance meetings where it's just me, my director of operations, and my executive assistant. Just the 3 of us. No one else has ever been a part of that meeting. And that's perfect, right? So not everybody needs to be a part of every single meeting. And when you right size the cohorts that meet and everyone commits to arriving prepared with their thoughts and agenda items and documents gathered, oh my word, a live meeting is a wonderful, wonderful thing. It totally smashes whatever async is supposed to do for us. Now, at the same time, sometimes we don't need a whole team to participate in a regular standing meeting. Sometimes we don't even need like a subcommittee or a department meeting or a project meeting. Sometimes we just need a one-off meeting. That's it. Sometimes just a one-off meeting will do it. Kind of like how you meet with your accountant, kind of not all that often, so that you can discuss tax strategy a few times a year, and that's the same kind of idea. So what's the impact on Slack if you are now batching your communication into live meetings? Well, you're going to have like half, if not 3/4 less messages on Slack because you're just dealing with it in real time with real people. Now, just like we don't need every single person to be a part of every single live meeting, likewise, we do not need every single person to be a part of every single Slack channel. So if we are stuck in Slack on a certain percentage of items, so be it. But let's not have everyone be a part of every single channel. It can be very, very tempting, especially in a small team. Call it like around 7 or 8 people, especially for the CEO founder, and you're just trying to be involved and trying to be a great coach and leader and boss and all the rest, to feel like, oh, I got to have my fingers in everything. I'm telling you, that is a productivity killer. I do not want to be a part of that situation There is nothing interesting about that to me. On my team, I don't know, we probably have something like 9 or 10 different channels for different groups and whatnot. And I think I'm only a part of like 4. No, in fact, it's probably more like 15 groups, and I'm only a part of like 3 or 4. One is like a finance channel. One is with my DOO and my EA. And one is like every time I sell a new client, there's like a handoff channel. So I think that's it. I think it's like I'm a part of 3, maybe 4, and there's something like 15, maybe 20 on the team. In fact, there's some I don't even know if they exist, and I'm perfectly fine with that. I only want to receive messages in my DMs if I absolutely need to see it, right? Like, just reduce the bloat and let people be peaceful. Now, I'll also add, getting back to the idea of meetings, is if there is something that you're meant to know about and it is important and relevant that you're the one who deals with it or has at least some input, then let's just ask the question like, is this an urgent matter or a non-urgent matter? Because if it's non-urgent, maybe we just handle it live in a meeting for the exact same reasons that we get to go ping pong, ping pong, ping pong, ping pong, done, rather than ping, pong, ping, and now it takes like 2 weeks to handle something that could have been handled in like 20 minutes, right? So that's another way. Batch non-urgent items into an agenda, and that becomes a live meeting in a day, in a week, heck, maybe even in a month. Okay, so that is how we can eliminate. Remember, we're going for eliminate, automate, delegate. That is eliminate. Next up, let's talk about automate. How can we leverage tools and systems to reduce our use of Slack? Well, I'll tell you what. You're a knowledge worker. You're probably pretty smart at what you do. And you probably end up answering some of the same questions kind of over and over again. And the old school way to do this was to come up with like a company wiki, right? Where it's like basically a glorified FAQ for your business. And it's like, okay, question, where do I find paper? Go to the supplies closet. Great, question, answer, right? So that's really great if it's really kind of like straightforward type questions, but it kind of breaks down pretty quickly. And there's oftentimes a lot of exceptions, and rarely are things as clean cut as they seem, right? There's a lot of what if in business and in life. Enter ChatGPT. Oh my goodness. I am a custom GPT maniac. I love creating custom GPTs for everything from how I coach people to I created a fitness chat GPT, custom GPT for myself. We could just go on and on and on. And so instead of you sitting and answering the same type of question over and over again, why not create a custom GPT? In fact, you can make it really easy for your teammates to find your GPTs by taking the custom links for your custom GPTs and putting them all on one part of your Slack channel, your Slack account. Maybe it's a channel called Custom GPTs, and people can just go there and ask questions as if they're asking you. Or if it's going to be a little bit more public facing, you can actually just buy a domain on GoDaddy.com and auto forward it to your custom GPT. So, for example, there's a tool that I developed called 360 Delegation, and it's one of the fastest, most complete, most professional ways for anyone to delegate anything to anyone. And it's something we actually train our clients when they get when our clients get an executive assistant from us. The client needs to know how to delegate, and oftentimes they don't. And so for years and thousands of hours, I've been on calls with clients, and I'm like, okay, here's how you use 360 Delegation. It starts with vision and then resources and definition done. And there I am explaining it. And then after that, we have to get into like, okay, well, what are some examples, some samples of success of what this looks like well done, and how is it different for law versus for coaches and consultants, for accountants, and it just goes on and on. And look, I was grateful to do it. And our clients were thrilled. We're making a difference. Life is good. Well, if that's good, you want to know what's great is me coming up with a custom 360D writer where our clients and their executive assistants can literally just go to 360dwriter.com and can just ask the 360D writer to help them write a 360D, and they don't even have to wait around to book a call with me. They don't have to come to office hours. They can literally just help themselves. And we've trained not only the entrepreneurs to use that, but also the assistants. So now they can delegate up to their entrepreneur. And I've also trained my coaches on how to do it. So my coach can now work with entrepreneurs and assistants to get delegations written far more quickly. Custom GPTs, are the next level of like a company wiki. Now, should you have a company wiki? Yeah, whether you do that as a Google Doc that you just kind of share, or whether it's something more elaborate like Notion, yeah, let's capture some of that kind of native knowledge of the business. Where things get real interesting though is when your like decision making and coaching is now captured, which isn't possible unless you're using a custom GPT. So I highly recommend you get into that. So we've talked about eliminate, we've talked about automate. Third, we're going to talk about delegate and how you can use that to reduce the amount of Slack messages you get. Just like the custom GPT can help prevent some Slack messages coming your way, we can use humans to help protect you from getting too many Slack messages coming your way. Now, if you're a leader, this is going to sound different than if you are maybe more of a technician on your team right now. So for leaders, being in every single Slack group, I already mentioned, it's unsustainable, so we're not going to do that. Instead, find and empower leaders within your business. And like I said, I've only got 8 people on my team. It's not like I've got hundreds of people. Empower certain people to have certain responsibilities. And ultimately, it's like they become the new you. And now they take over that part of the business, including the related Slack channels, so you don't have to. Now, if you are not the leader, but you're more of a technician or team member, then how you could use this would be to actually request of your superior that you become the leader, or that you become just like the committee member that reports on behalf. Because a leader can't possibly stay up to speed on everything going on, even in like a 5 or 6 person team. It's just unsustainable. What they can do though is they could have one meeting with their operations manager, and that operations manager can report back once per week on what's going on. If you need a daily report for peace of mind, that's fine too. But the point is if the leader no longer has to deal with all the Slack channels, then that cuts it down for the leader. However, for the team members who are on the other side of the coin, that's also better too, because maybe you get elevated, your career advances, or now you don't have to wait for your boss to answer. You can get answers much more quickly by talking to whoever your like direct superior is. So much better. Now, another thing we need to, again, to help like just be a better shepherd of the leader's time and focus, is possibly think about setting up office hours. And that could be office hours internally, where it's like the same time every single week. The company founder, maybe that's you, is available to answer questions from anyone. And that can also really cut down the Slack messages. If you are not the leader, then one thing you could do is you could request office hours. That can be really, really nice. And on top of that, it could also be that your staff is just underpowered right now. And again, whether you're the leader or a team member, sometimes a business, it just needs more staff. And, in the short term, maybe you got to deal with an unideal Slack situation, whether you're the leader or the follower. However, maybe it's not forever. Maybe you're one hire away. Maybe you need to hire a director of operations or ops manager, or maybe you need an executive assistant or something to help protect your time a little bit better. Ultimately, I think that reducing Slack overwhelm is not necessarily about using the tool in a more expert way or having some special, integrations or channel settings. Yes, there's wins to be had in all of those areas, but I think the ultimate pro move is just to use Slack less. By leveraging elimination, automation, and delegation, you can seriously reclaim your focus and your productivity. Remember, the goal is not just to survive Slack, but to design systems that allow you to thrive without it. If you have any questions, you think I might have something to say, by all means put it in the comment section and I will get to it as best I can. Talk to you soon.